six, although the way the original speaker described them was more like five, the six purposes of schooling and how they affect systems and can be used for manipulation and various other things. The major thing to remember about the six purposes is that it's trying to program humanity to respond in specific ways. So we're going to start off with the first one, the adjustive function. The adjustive function is to take the unique human individual, force them into a single kind of catch-all mold. While this is very hard to do, it's not impossible. The major problem that you have with that is from people's natural tendency to want to explore and question things. So the adjustive function is to kind of take that, put it down a few levels, and make sure that they know their place in a given hierarchy. Continuing on with the adjustive function, its primary practice, I would guess you would say, is to make sure that you have a baseline. Very similar to studying things, you have a control group. I can't have enough standardized information in order to see what's wrong or what's different if I don't have a control group. So the adjustive function is to create that control group. So this is the ideal pattern of behavior. Any variation between on either side of it can be flagged as either inappropriate or different. And then it will be used to either correct that behavior or single those individuals out for either positions or ostracization. The next part is to determine how an individual or a group of individuals will respond to authority. Responsive authority, we all respond to authority in given ways. Whether it's compliance or rebellion is pretty much the very broad examples or options that we're given in a natural setting. However, to get the individuals to always respond with obedience to authority is the express goal of creating the consistent reaction. The jump how high idiom comes into play with this, because if you can get someone programmed enough, whether it's from positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement, you're going to get them to do what you want without question, which for you, if you're the one who's trying to control it, that's great. If you're the one who's being controlled, it's not at all good for you, because you can be told to do something that could be to your own harm or to somebody else's harm if you answer to authority without question and always deal with compliance with any given order from that source of authority. I personally have a very large gripe against that, because of my previous training, is that manipulation is very corrosive to an extent. There are a few other things. If you check out the blog, you'll be able to find my opinions on those specific subjects discussed continually. But the problem is that we see the absolute following of an authoritative figure or an authoritative position to the extent that atrocities can and will occur. This is obviously not what anyone who has any logical set of thinking wants. They generally want to be left alone to their own devices, or to achieve a positive goal, if you will. If they don't, they are more likely to try to take control of the system, use that system to their own advantage. Everyone tries to do this to an extent to get the best outcome for themselves, but it can lead to a lot of people being treated as human chattel, and that's never a good situation. And it can lead to the dehumanization of people and making it easier for them to be disposed of and more permanent ways. Those are the first two. The next one is the conformity function. People are social creatures. They like to be parts of groups. They also like to be accepted by their peers. In order to take advantage of this, schooling and the conformity function is applied so that people will want to be accepted by the group. And if an outside source, the source of authority, dictates that the group does not accept these very specific or sometimes amorphous options or choices or behaviors, it goes toward singling out individuals who do not toe the line, who do not agree with the authority, and who are not uniform. Uniformity is very useful in manufacturing. If you can create a consistent product at consistent rates and make sure that they have interchangeable parts, that's fantastic. You can make a lot of money doing that. But if you do it with people, you have an unimaginative society. You have something that's only going to serve 1 to 2 to 3 purposes in their entire lives. And that is to follow orders, to carry out the orders, and to not draw outside the lines. And a lot of breakthroughs have come from people challenging authority and going beyond what was considered the standard at the time. So the conformity aspect of it, we can see it in certain groups such as the military. In the military, it is kind of necessary to create a uniform fighting force. But we don't need that in the part of society where creativity needs to take hold. And this is the entrepreneurial aspects, the business aspects, and innovative aspects. Yeah. If you're all uniform, you're all thinking inside the box. Sometimes the box can be your friend because you have solutions that have already been tried and known to succeed within that box. But sometimes you encounter something that defies everything within the box, and you must get out of the box, out of the uniform mold, in order to be able to solve them. The problem is, if everyone is taught and drummed into them that you must absolutely stay inside the box, you will never get anyone to go outside the box unless they're an extraordinary individual who can shrug off the programming and decide, you know what, I need a solution that I can't find. I need to be able to find that solution, so I will step outside the box, which is uniformity. The next part of the 6 purposes of schooling is to set people very specifically in a category. This is not the same as uniformity. This is the varying levels of category. If you look at older societies such as India and Japan, we would refer to this as a caste system. This is to determine by such as intelligence test scores and certain levels IQ, to determine that the individual is stuck in this category. So you have within ant societies, you have the worker class, you have the soldier class, and you have the queen. Each and every one of those individual ants is stuck within that category. There's no method for them to advance, although my study of ants is very, very shaky and that might not be accurate. But for our purposes, it creates kind of a nice mental picture for us to correlate it with. Within the societal caste system of around the world, we have lower class, middle class, upper class. Other places would have slave class, merchant class, soldier class, whatever else. Caste systems are something I don't like because they are, again, that box of uniformity. It also says that one individual, no matter how intelligent they may be, no matter how good at what they are capable of doing they may be, they are stuck within that level of society. There's no lateral or vertical motion for them to be able to either advance themselves or be able to help others or help themselves to achieve. It's, you're born into this one caste, you die in this caste. And that's not the way civilization is developed. It is to an extent, a very vicious system, in my opinion, that whether economics or where you're born or what skin color you have puts you absolutely in this one caste or this one class. I completely reject that idea, and I believe that it is the only way I can describe it is it's so demeaning to think that just because of one's behavior in one particular circumstance or one particular set of circumstances that they are now stuck in one part of society forever. Some people are completely happy with their part in society, and I encourage them to love what they do and to do it with all their might and all their strength because that's what they love to do. But if somebody doesn't love what they do and they want to try to do something else and they're good at it, within a caste system, they can't. And within this system, the system of control, they can't. There's always going to be someone a bit better than them or chosen for something else, and the caste system is just absolutely infuriating for me. While we do have social cliques even outside of school and in society at large, it's not in such a way as that it's forcing them into it. It's more people of similar tastes and interests gravitate toward each other and they interact. They create social structures within society. By doing that, they create networks, and the networks can help each other, and that is where they can advance themselves or help others advance or share information in a kind of classical human computer style. Moving on from the third or fourth, we have the differentiation purpose. To differentiate between those castes. Oh, we don't talk to them because they are commoners. The concept of monarchy and the concepts of the upper class have been used as levers for people to manipulate others for thousands of years. The classic one from communism is to rise up against the bourgeoisie, this merchant class that oppressing the worker because people don't understand economics and realize that people are selling their time to somebody else in order to be able to survive or get something in exchange. So the differentiation purpose is to say that, okay, this is the smart girl club, this is the dumb boy club, or this is the nerds, these are the jocks. They differentiate between the various groups, and then they set up walls between the two. I know a lot of people who fall into like 3 or 4 different categories of those groups, and yet still interact with each of those categories. The differentiation aspect is to have them separate as the fact that they never meet, they never interact, and they never work together to achieve something. To separate them. They have their combined forces are not focused in to achieve one single thing. Instead, they're for their own individual goals, and a society that can be very problematic, although it is kind of the basics of federalism in spreading power as far and wide as you can. But to differentiate that they can never interact with each other is the main problem with that part of schooling. Then, in the video, they went on to deal with the selective function. Pretty much a rating system or a determination of who is and is not fit to mate with. How you determine whether someone will be a progressively better mate or will help you to produce better offspring. This is what the scores and grades within school represent. They represent the selective function, and this person is better than this one because they scored higher on this one single thing. Or they can regurgitate information how we want it, the way we want it, when we want it, in a select manner. Therefore, they are better to produce offspring with because they follow the rules. They follow the directives and they follow authority without question. and they tell the answers that people want to hear. And that's a different part of manipulation, because you can tell someone what they want to hear and not believe it and not follow it whatsoever. If we go on, because it starts to all sort of meld, the last function of the 6 purposes of school systems is the reproductive function. Not biological reproduction, but to take the information, to copy it, and to transfer it somewhere else. Pretty much as was in the last podcast was pretty much human computer, human thumb drive. You have information, you can easily transfer it from A to B, and it will remain the same, or roughly the same, without the instances of how people play telephone and information is lost. Combined, all these things create a very interesting structure. It can be useful to an extent, but it can be used to create a lot and foster a large amount of negativity between social groups and even just single individuals, just because of how they're taught and trained to interpret society and interpret people's behaviors and their worth. There are some people who I believe not necessarily are worthless, but they have less value in certain areas than other people. This is just the natural order of things. I am not very good at excessive manual labor. Like, some people are absolutely built like horses, and they can just go and go and go and go and go with physical labor and lift heavy objects. And some are taller, some are shorter. These are factors we can't control. They're genetic to an extent. And going on from determining how and why they do things, it's not left up to the individual or to their own skill sets. It's determined by an outside source or bureaucracy, which I absolutely hate bureaucracies because they're extremely inefficient and they do not have the best interest of the individual and the system at heart. They have the love of rules. I do love rules, and I like how they can be used, but to use them to extremely determine exactly what somebody can do in life for their own benefit is against my personal system of thought. If an individual shows practice or shows ability in a particular discipline, writing, horseback riding. Why I thought of that, I don't know. Data collection, being a lawyer, being an office worker, being a woodworker, working with their hands, working with electronics. If they show a tendency toward that, they should be encouraged to explore it more and to gain more abilities in it and to master the skill that they have a tendency for, and to gain more skills and improve themselves and make it so that they are a more capable individual. Instead, with these 5 to 6 purposes, we have that being ignored. We are not producing individuals for the benefit of themselves and the benefit of society. We're producing them for the benefit of a system. Not necessarily to achieve something other than meat robots, for lack of a better term. To program an individual so far beyond their natural standing and their natural curiosity and desire to grow. Program them so far beyond that they will literally just take whatever is given to them and spew it back out in the exact same way that they received it. And to transfer that information, whether it's wrong or not, completely to somebody else. As we look back in history, and as we continue to study and grow more as a society, we'll find that some practices are wrong, or not necessarily wrong. Some practices aren't as efficient as others, or they are less beneficial than others. And as we refine the system, and as we refine our practices, we improve. What this system does is it takes that part of the out of play and emphasize static transfer of data. So I can write something down, in my very crappy handwriting, and I can hand it to somebody and they can read it. And they can write that down and transfer it over to somebody else. It doesn't matter if what I write down is accurate or good or not. It just matters that it's transferred on. That's what we shouldn't be aiming for. We should be figuring out, is this information good? Is it accurate? Can it be useful? Is it useful? Will it benefit something? Will it benefit my work? Will it benefit my job? Will it benefit somebody else's job? Will it help somebody get through a tough time? That's what we're trying to determine. We're trying to improve ourselves and improve our lives, not to be shoved into a singular mold, expected to stay there, and to die in that cast or that job that we may absolutely hate day in and day out. It's very hard for me to accept the use of indoctrination to say that it is the best form of education. I would prefer that people were educated and knew what they were doing and be able to express themselves clearly and express their beliefs and their skills and to pass those skills on clearly. That is what I'm striving to do, at least. And I'm striving to get others to do. Instead of just pass on this information because we tell you it's right. We haven't determined that. It's the level of distrust that I have towards people dictates that telling me what to do only on the premise that I am being told what to do is a bad method of training and transferal of data. If you want me to transfer data and pass on skills because, oh hey, in this situation it works, and this is how, after long hours of testing and other things, we found out that this is the best solution, that's different. To explain the why and the how of something working or something being used validates the process of transferring that information to somebody else. It has nothing to do with just transfer data. Just transfer information, skills, and everything else, and it'll be fine. No, it's figuring out the shortest distance between 2 points. The not necessary shortcut, the most efficient way to do something, the most efficient way to transfer data, most efficient way to get a job done. That's what at least I'm trying to figure out. Some distances require a lot more motion in them. Some paths are a bit more winding, and some of them are too short in that they will create problems because they leave out so many steps that are necessary for the machine to function. It's like expecting a Swiss watch to work after you take 90% of the gears out. There are purposes to certain systems, and there are purposes in certain skills and certain courses of actions that are necessary for them to work. But the way we're training people now is leaving out a lot of steps, mainly just because they want people to be able to be the same. They're not transferring a skill to someone, they're transferring a rigid and selected idea to get a very specific response from them, to create an absolute uniformity in a set of individuals rather than to have a uniform system for the people to be able to learn in and be able to mold to their own needs and requirements to grow. I think I've ranted enough, at least on that system. The best thing to do with anything is to find it out for yourself. You can ask other people and they can help you along, and that's fantastic. You should find that. But to find out why, to find out how, are the two main reasons I think we're put here, or the reason why we are so naturally curious and wanting to find out about things is because we have deep down in us the need and the drive to become better versions of ourselves. And to become more capable, we need to figure out the how and why of the thing rather than just take it, kind of digest it, give it to someone else in the exact same manner. think about it. Check out, like, and subscribe. Check out the WordPress blog and the Twitter. It's easier to follow on Twitter, and hit the little bell to receive notifications when we go live next. And without further ado, I am the Irreverent Gentleman. This has been the Irreverent Gentleman's Podcast. I bid you good evening.